Today's lesson is called Give Me a Sign, the History of Mathematical Symbols, Day 2. Hi everyone, my name is Jeff.
I'm Roger. Today we're continuing to talk about mathematics. More specifically, we're talking about mathematical symbols used by mathematicians and the rest of us as well. Now, even if you aren't good at math, you probably still use these symbols in your everyday life. Plus, minus, subtract, multiplication, division, etc. These are all mathematical symbols, but there are more symbols in mathematics, like pi, for example, or there's also phi for the golden ratio, and there are some other ones like for square roots and stuff like that. I didn't really get past high school algebra, so I remember some of these symbols, but we're going to continue learning some more about symbols in today's lesson.
There you go. So far, we've been talking about mathematical operations, okay, and the symbols that are related to those operations. We talked about the equals sign. Okay, that's not necessarily an operation, but we did talk about that sign. And then we did talk about the operations of addition and subtraction. And today we're going to be moving on, okay? We're going to be talking about operations, that's true, operations like addition and subtraction, but mostly we're going to be focusing on how some mathematical symbols represent things that are unrepresentable. Yeah, you keep talking about this number pi. The reason that people represent the number pi by using a Greek letter, pi, that's the actual name of that Greek letter, is because that number is irrational. It can't be represented by way of a fraction or any other number. The best we can do is to write out a decimal. 3.14 ... on to infinity. Yeah, this decimal number that represents the quantity pi. It's infinitely long and there is no pattern there. So yeah, instead of writing out that infinitely long number for which there's no pattern, that would take forever to do anyways. If you wanted to actually write that out, it would be impossible. Instead, mathematicians, they go ahead and they represent that value, that quantity, by using a symbol. The symbol pi, the Greek letter pi, I should say, is the symbol that they use to represent this quantity. Okay, folks, with that, it's time for us to take a break, but don't go away. We'll start our lesson right after this.
Besides operations like addition and subtraction, symbols are also often used in mathematics to represent numbers or concepts that are difficult or even impossible to write out. Many of these symbols are simply Greek letters. For example, the symbol for pi is the Greek letter pi. This symbol is used because it is the first letter of the Greek word perimetros, which means circumference.
大家好，今天第一个单字我们看到的是 operation， 这个字当作名词，代表数学运算或是运作、运行的意思。例如 Sharon learns the basic math operations in the elementary school. Sharon 在小学学习基本数学运算。
Okay, everybody, it's time to start our lesson with the first paragraph. Now, it begins by saying, besides operations like addition and subtraction, symbols are often used, they are also often used in mathematics to represent numbers or concepts that are difficult or even impossible to write out. And that's basically what you were just saying about pi there. What is that? The ratio of the circumference of a circle to its diameter. That's what pi is, but that is an irrational number. What is it? 3.1415925, blah, 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 all the way to infinity. That is an irrational number, and that is a pretty difficult concept to write out with just numbers, so they use the symbol pi. So, of course, we're talking about different operations in mathematics, multiplication, division, etc. Those are examples of operations.
Yeah, those are operations, and I thought that we were going to be talking a little bit more about operations today because we touched on addition and subtraction. I thought that we were going to go into multiplication and division as well, but apparently, yeah, we're going to move on to a different type of symbol. Okay, the symbols that represent numbers or concepts that are difficult or even impossible to write out. And yeah, I'm okay with that. I just thought that maybe we'd cover some you know, some of the other mathematical operations. Addition and subtraction are great, but what about multiplication? What about division? What about differentiation or integration? How about interpolation? We're not going to learn anything about these things. That's too bad. But hey, the symbols that represent unquantifiable quantities, those are pretty cool as well. But yeah, before we move on, let's talk about what this word operation means here. Here we're not talking about surgery or anything like that. Here, when we're talking about operations, we're talking about the things you do or carry out with numbers while following strict rules. Yeah, operations are things like addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, differentiation, integration. You get the idea. Anyways, let's go ahead and move on. Many of these symbols are simply Greek letters. It's true, yeah. For example, the symbol for pi, we keep talking about this number pi, is the Greek letter pi. Yeah, there's a Greek alphabet there, and if you went down that list of Greek letters in their alphabet, you would come across pi at a certain point. A Greek person would say, hey, that's just the letter pi, but everywhere else, mathematicians have used this particular letter to represent a number. The number pi, 3.14, on to infinity.
Right, and this symbol is used because it is the first letter of the Greek word perimetros, which means circumference. And circumference, of course, is the distance around a circle. The circumference, like the circumference of the Earth. What is the circumference of the Earth exactly? Well, you can figure that out if you know the diameter of the Earth. You can use a mathematical formula for that. But in any case, we're talking about pi because that does have to do with the circumference of a circle, the ratio of the circumference of a circle to its diameter. That is pi. And so they use a Greek word, perimetros, and they just shorten it to the Greek letter pi, which is the p sound in Greek.
There you go. Now, when we're talking about the circumference of a circle, everyone, we're talking about the distance around the outside edge of that circle, or the perimeter of that circle. That's all there is to it. And yes, I believe that the formula for the circumference of the circle is 2 times pi times r, or d, the diameter of that circle, times pi. That's all there is to it. All right, folks, with that, it's time for us to take a break, but don't go away. We'll be right back after this.
Another character that often appears in mathematics is the symbol for infinity. The symbol was first introduced to the world of math in 1655 by English mathematician John Wallis. Wallis did not explain why he chose this symbol to represent mathematical infinity, but because the shape appeared elsewhere prior to being used in math, various theories have flourished. Some believe that he referred to religious objects or ancient Egyptian or Greek texts that included some version of the symbol. Others suggest that Wallis modified the Roman numeral for 1000, which was also used to mean many, or the last letter of the Greek alphabet, omega.
第二部分我们看到的单字是 elsewhere， 这个字当作副词，它有在别处或是往别处的意思，所以我们可以说 The product is made at this factory, but it is packaged elsewhere. 这个产品在这间工厂制造，但在别的地方包装。再来，我们看到的单字是 prior， 这个字当作形容词，代表先前的或是较早的意思。例如 Prior to seeing him at the party, I didn't know he had been invited. 在派对上看到他之前，我并不知道他有被邀请。接下来我们看到的单字是 flourish， 这个字当作动词，它有繁荣、昌盛、兴旺的意思。例如，那个城市因为电影在当地取景而繁荣。英文可以这么说 The city flourished after the movie was filmed there. 再来我们看到的单字是 modify， 这个字当作动词，它有稍作修改、变更或是修饰的意思。所以我们可以说Brian modified the software to use in the classroom. Brian 修改了那个软体在课堂上使用。
All right, we just got done talking about the symbol pi. Let's talk about the symbol for infinity. Okay, well, another character that often appears in mathematics is the symbol for infinity, which kind of looks like the number 8 on its side. So here we've got the word infinity. That just means something goes on forever. It never stops.
Yes, infinity is the state of being infinite. And yes, the word infinite means endless. does. So if something is infinite, it goes on and on and on. It goes on forever. It has no limits. It's unimaginably large. The list goes on and on. You could say that the universe is infinite. But yeah, infinite is the adjective. Infinity is the noun. Now more on the symbol for infinity. The symbol was first introduced to the world of math in 1655 by English mathematician John Wallis.
And Wallis did not explain why he chose this symbol to represent mathematical infinity, but because the shape appeared elsewhere prior to being used in math, various theories have flourished. So he did not say why he chose this symbol. Hey, Mr. Wallis, why did you use this symbol to represent infinity? Well, he just never said. He was too busy, or maybe nobody ever asked him. So we really don't know why he was using that symbol to represent infinity. But the shape appeared elsewhere prior to being used in math. So we did have that shape before. It was not used in math before, but maybe he saw that symbol and thought, hey, that's a pretty cool symbol there. I will use that for infinity. But again, we really don't know why he did that. But the symbol was around before that, and he just chose it to represent infinity. That shape appeared elsewhere. Elsewhere just means in other places. Prior to just means before in time, prior to being used in math. So various theories have flourished.
There you go. Notice that Roger just said prior to. Very often you'll see this word prior, and the word to will follow that word. And yes, prior to, that just means before. Yeah, the shape appeared elsewhere before being used in math. You could have said that as well. It would have been totally okay. And yeah, elsewhere just means in some place other than here, or at a place other than the one just mentioned. Then last but not least, in this sentence, we have the verb flourish. Okay, to flourish is to grow, thrive, or to develop quickly and successfully.
Right, to flourish. Lots of people move to other countries and they flourish there because it's a good environment. They develop well, they get educated, they make a lot of money, etc. But of course, here we're talking about these theories as to why he was using the infinity symbol. Those ideas have been all over the place. They have flourished, and some people think that he referred to religious objects or ancient Egyptian or Greek texts that included some version of the symbol. So this is what some people think. He referred to these religious objects. To refer to something means make a reference to something, to bring it up in conversation or something like that. So he must have been reading some old religious books, and he saw these objects in there, and he thought, hey, I'm going to use that one to represent infinity. He was referring to those religious objects, or maybe ancient Egyptian or Greek texts, old books from Egypt or Greece that had some version of this symbol. He liked it and decided to use it to represent infinity.
There you go. To refer to, this phrase is being used to say that some believe that Wallis was making reference to someone or something, or was alluding to someone or something when he chose the symbol he did for infinity. And yeah, what was he alluding to? What was he making reference to? Ancient Egyptian or Greek texts, apparently. Anyways, moving on. The next sentence says, others suggest that Wallis modified the Roman numeral for 1,000. Originally, these two things. Go ahead and take a look in your book there, in your magazine. Yeah, others suggest that Wallis modified the Roman numeral for 1,000, which was also used to mean many, or the last letter of the Greek alphabet, i.e., omega. Okay, now before we take a break, we've got two things to talk about here. First, we've got the verb modify. To modify something is to change something in order to improve that thing or to make it newer or current once again. Yeah, you alter something if you modify that thing to make it slightly better or to make it useful in some new way.
And we're talking about him modifying the Roman numeral for 1,000. A numeral is just a number number, especially if we're unfamiliar with the symbols, a numeral, and that originally was written as kind of like a C with an I and then a backwards C, or just the C and the backwards C. So you can imagine if you stick those letters together, they'll look like an infinity symbol. That was also used to mean many, or it could be the last letter of the Greek alphabet, omega, which the lowercase kind of looks like a curvy W, okay? So that's omega. Some people say omega. Both are acceptable. Okay, let's move on now to the final portion of our article for today. Let's listen first.
Looking back at the origins of mathematical symbols, it's staggering to realize that they came about just a few hundred years ago. Today, they serve as a convenient and universal language of mathematics. Although math remains a challenging subject for many students, symbols have made it a lot easier.
今天最后一个单字，我们看到的是 staggering。这个字当作形容词，它有令人难以置信或是惊人的意思。例如 ，The author wrote a staggering amount of novels during her lifetime。那位作家一生中写了数量惊人的小说作品。
Roger, are we almost done with our lesson on mathematical symbols?
Yes, we can only sort of touch on a couple of them, but there are many symbols that we're not mentioning here.
Right on there, Roger, but I still feel as though our lesson was extraordinarily rich and that we learned a whole lot. On top of that, I feel as though the time has just flown by. It does not feel like we've already reached the end of our lesson, our 2-day lesson on mathematical symbols. Gosh,
I can't believe it either. Yeah, time flies by when you're having a good time. But we're talking about these different symbols in mathematics, and we've talked about the infinity symbol, we've talked about pi, we've talked about the plus sign, etc. So let's wrap things up here. In the final paragraph, it says, looking back at the origins of mathematical symbols, it's staggering to realize that they came about just a few hundred years ago. My goodness, it's shocking. It's totally unbelievable that these mathematical symbols that we all take for granted only came about just a couple of hundred years ago. Okay, that's staggering. It's staggering to realize that. Staggering just means it's really, really surprising to such a point that you might even fall over from shock.
Staggering, surprising, or impressive. Impressive in the extreme. So impressive, so surprising even, that it's hard to believe. Yeah, something that's staggering very often is also astonishing. Anyways, we also have this phrase, to come about. If something comes about, it comes into being. Yes, if something comes about, it happens, or it just begins to exist. It comes into existence. Anyways, let's go ahead and wrap things up. We only have 2 more sentences to go. The first of these says, today, they, mathematical symbols, today they serve as a convenient and universal language of mathematics. And yes, this much is for certain.
It is for certain, so now you understand these symbols and where they came from. And although math remains a challenging subject for many students, symbols have made it a lot easier. So thank goodness we have all those symbols, and we have the contributions of mathematicians in the past who came up with these symbols. Otherwise, we would have a dickens of a time trying to do our mathematical calculations without those symbols. We just love those symbols, and there are many other symbols that we did not talk about here, like the square root sign. Where does that come from? Or sigma and some other functions, but I'm sure you can look that up on your own. And if you do look them up, you will understand mathematics much better, and you'll be able to apply your mathematical knowledge to your future career when you work for a major company and you help them figure out economic patterns in the world, and you will make a ton of money in the process.
All right, folks, with that, it's time for us to hand you over to the Chinese teacher, but don't go away. More fun is coming up next.
各位同学大家好，我是 Hanny。 我们来看见文法重点。在课文第2部分有一个句子是 Wallace did not explain why he chose the symbol to represent mathematical infinity. But because the shape appeared elsewhere prior to being used in math, various theories have flourished. 沃利斯并没有解释他为何选择这个符号来代表数学的无限，但因为这个形状早在运用数学之前就曾经出现在其他地方，因此各种不同的见解就纷纷出现了。好，前半句的 Why he chose this symbol to represent mathematical infinity， 它是由疑问词 why 引导的名词子句，然后是用来当作动词 explain 的受词。好，那后半句有一个片语是 prior to， 它是当介系词，表示在什么什么之前，那就相当于 before。prior to 后面是可以接名词或动名词，那它算是比较正式的用法。例如 Passengers are required to be checked in at least 30 minutes prior to departure. 乘客必须在班机起飞至少30分钟前办理登机手续。接着我们读到课文下一句。Some believe that he referred to religious objects or ancient Egyptian or Greek texts that included some version of the symbol. 有些人认为沃利斯参考了宗教物品或古埃及、古希腊的文本，其中包含这个符号的一些版本。好，这边来介绍片语 refer to 的用法。refer to 有很多意思哦。第一个是表达查阅或者是参考什么什么来获得资讯，像是参考书籍啊、查阅笔记等等。课文里面就是这个用法。例如 Please refer to our website for more information. 想知道更多资讯，请上我们的网站查阅。好，第二种意思是表达谈到或者是提到、提起。In his speech, he referred to his boyhood dream. 他在演讲的时候有谈到他少年时期的梦想。好，第三种意思是指跟什么什么有关，涉及某事物，或者是指的是什么什么。例如 The numbers refer to footnotes at the bottom of the page. 这些数字是跟页面底下的注脚有关，指的就是那些注释。好，那第四种用法是指把什么什么称为，我们可以用 refer to A as B 来表达把 A 称为 B。那被动用法就是 A 加上 be 动词 referred to as B。例如 New York City is often referred to as the Big Apple. 纽约市常常被称为大苹果。好，以上是今天的重点整理，接着我们来回顾今天的单字吧。
Operation. Knowing the 4 basic math operations is necessary to learn advanced math. Elsewhere. Elsewhere in the book, the author discusses loss and healing. Prior. A Tai Chi class is held in this room prior to our dance class every week. Flourish. The small town flourished after several new jobs were created. Modify. Mrs. Lewis went back and modified the final exam to include a short essay question. Staggering. I had a staggering number of bills to pay off following my car accident.
Discussion starter starts now!
All right, folks, now it's time for our discussion starter. Roger, what was the most interesting thing you learned from this article?
Well, I enjoyed learning that the infinity symbol kind of looks like a sideways 8. I never thought of that myself before, and also because it may have come from ancient Roman numerals or any of the other symbols. Their origins are quite fascinating. How about you?
Well, I find it really interesting that the minus sign had such a humdrum history. Apparently, scribes needed to write more quickly. So instead of writing the word minus down, they wrote down the letter M, and then to make things even simpler, they just used that bar to represent the letter M, and that became the minus sign. I find that really, really interesting. Okay, everyone. With that, today's article is now complete. But, as always, we sure hope that you guys have enjoyed reading along with us. Anyways, I'm Jeff.
I am Roger.
See you next time.